Greetings and welcome to the first episode of my film analysis series. Today we're going to take a look at one of my absolute favorite TV shows of all time, HBO original True Detective from 2014 season 1. True Detective is an anthology series, meaning that each season is standalone with different actors, so this is basically an 8-hour-long film. Season 1 is a masterpiece of writing, blending outstanding characters, deep themes, clever plot, and immersive atmosphere all in one. True Detective is a crime drama, but the focus lies heavily on character and theme, and the two protagonists, Rust Cole and Marty Hart, shine throughout the movie, also with the help of brilliant performances by Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. The story spans nearly 2 decades, starting in 1995 and ending in 2012. The time it takes for the detectives to solve the murders and uncover corruption, evil, and occultism. The action isn't linear. The timeline is broken down as it shifts between the first murder of Dora Lang in 1995, its progression in 2002, and the present-day interrogation of the protagonist in 2012. This is one of those rare TV series where everything is on point. You aren't bored with info dumping, distracted by fillers, comic reliefs, pointless action. Every scene and line spoken has its precise place in the story, and as we writers know, this is essential to master, but it is far from an easy task. In this video, we're looking precisely at how the protagonists are introduced in episode 1 and how the traits shown here will reflect in the rest of the series. We're going to analyze this aspect and see what we can learn from the excellent writing of this TV show. I'll focus on episode 1, The Long Bright Dark, so I'll try to keep it spoiler-free for the rest of the series. Let's start with a fun fact. When he first began to work on this story, the writer and creator of True Detective, Nick Pizzolatto, wanted to make a play about two men talking, I quote, on separate ends of the stage telling somewhat differing accounts, unquote, of something that happened 25 years before. So he built the entire story from there. And this premise shows in how the season is built. In other words, True Detective is primarily about two men, the relationship between them, their attitudes towards the unfolding events, and their experiences during the heavy case they're working on, and significantly, their discovery of themselves. As Nick Pizzolatto says, the only place anything ever comes to life is in character. The tragic death of Rust Cole's young daughter has left him a haunted and troubled man. He is cynical, pessimistic, and world-weary, a loner who isolates himself from others, finds refuge in substance abuse, is obsessive about his work, to the point where his dedication is akin to a death wish. When he worked in narcotics, he spent 4 years undercover exposing himself to extreme danger and abusing drugs to such an extent that he feels the effects on his brain in the form of mild hallucinations even now. He is a very intelligent man known for his philosophical musings revolving around existential and nihilistic themes which cause him to be viewed as strange and unapproachable to everyone around him. Marty Hart is a traditional manly man. He is tough and no-nonsense when he needs to, personable with his colleagues and well-liked at work, cares about his image, is religious, a self-declared family man who does his best to be a great father to his 2 daughters and maintain a peaceful and pleasant family life. He's also impulsive and emotional, has a tendency to turn to alcohol when things go bad, and has extramarital affairs. Now, these traits are developed and illustrated throughout the entire season, but what's remarkable about True Detective is that within the first 5 minutes, we already get a pretty clear picture of the plot and characters. It begins with the image of the murder, customary for every crime fiction, but it lasts only 30 seconds and then it shifts to the protagonist. In this scene, Marty Hart is being interrogated about a case he worked on with his partner Rust Cole, and surprisingly, the focus of the interrogation is not the victim or the killers that they have already caught at this point, but Rust Cole. Note again that the murder of Dora Lang, which started the whole thing, took place in 1995, while this interview takes place in 2012, 17 years after the protagonists meet. Now, let's watch the scene and break it down.
What do you think? You paired up with him.
The very first line of the movie, Rust Cole is the focus of the discussion, which means the entire movie.
What I think? Well, you don't pick your parents and you don't pick your partner.
So they're mismatched partners. This suggests dissensions between them and hence conflict for the movie.
You know, they used to call him the tax man for a while. He come out of Texas, so nobody knew him.
So he's an outsider, he's mysterious.
Seemed a bit raw boned to me, edgy. Took 3 months till we got him over to the house for dinner.
So he's unsociable, introverted.
Around our big 419. That's what you all want to hear about, right? Dora Lang, kids in the woods.
Yeah, sure. But talk about Cole. We heard some stories.
So it's a big case, but somehow Cole is more important. And now we want to hear those stories too.
Kind of a strange guy, huh?
Strange. Yeah. Rust? Pick a fight with the sky, didn't like its shade of blue.
He's critical, antagonistic, intransigent about his views.
But when we finally got him over to the house, this is when that case was hot, poor bastard looked like he was on his way to the firing squad.
So he is troubled and suffering inside, and note that we only get to see him from behind. 2 minutes into the movie and wow, we already have a pretty complex and nuanced image of a character we haven't even met yet. So what effect does this have on the viewer so far? Well, our attention is immediately drawn to this character even before we get to meet him. The policeman's interest makes him sound like a suspect, a potential murderer, and his partner's description paints him as someone who stands out. Rust Cole thus becomes the star of the show in absentia, and we can't wait to meet him. The stakes are now high for the show to deliver in the next few minutes an outstanding character, a very bold and out of the ordinary beginning. And now enter Rust Cole.
Dora Lang, the occult, ritual, murder. You can thank the advertiser for that.
Could you
All right, yeah.
hold off on
Can't do that here no more.
Yeah? Oh, you assholes. You want to hear this or not?
He is indifferent to social norms and graces. His unkempt appearance a testimony to that, and already a clear difference from what we've seen in the previous short scenes with him from behind. And he's potentially indifferent to his health. He has given in to his vices. He's also independent, strong-willed, uncontrollable, and shows a rejection of rules that he considers pointless. And see here how he exploits his position to make demands and to do things his own way. So he receives the mug, and thus the silent agreement to smoke, which also implies that he is respected and that his account is needed.
Vermilion Sheriff requested assistance with a 419 cane fields outside of Erath. I'd been on the job about 3 months till then. 2 previous cases were open and shut. It was January the 3rd, 1995, my daughter's birthday. I remember.
We see that his daughter is very important to him. We don't yet know what happened to her and where she is now, but we'll get a glimpse of it minutes later. The scene of Rust being invited to Marty's place for dinner, drunk because it's his daughter's birthday and Marty has 2 small girls of his own, the signs of tragedy in Rust's life and deep-carved, inescapable pain. Also, this has been noted before in analysis, but notice how he draws in the smoke and doesn't let it out as if to get as much of it as possible and make the most damage. He's a staunch introvert with little regard to himself, and his smoking is one of the little but brilliant details used as symbols of how he keeps everything inside, like the smoke, and shows so little of himself to the world. Wow, 3 minutes in and we already know so much about the characters. Next, the crime scene is shown, and it's a ritualistic murder striking in its eeriness, cold-bloodedness, and attention to detail as if the killer were making a work of art. While Marty hesitates to approach, Rust dives into it with his big ledger that brought him the taxman nickname, describing and writing and drawing everything. Marty interacts with other policemen, prefers to stand aside, and his finger wavers on the camera, showing how troubling he finds it, but Rust's eyes are on the victim and follow all the little details of the crime scene. We learn that Marty is deeply affected by the darkness of mankind. He can't sleep thinking about it, he seeks escapism, while Rust delves into it with a sort of morbid masochistic fascination. He knows darkness has no bounds. He knows the world is unfair and random, but there are patterns, and piecing the bits together might make a difference in an evil world. Marty talks here about police work. Note how his comment shows some insight into the job and some analysis of people around him, proving he's an experienced detective. But as soon as he is asked something about himself, he says a joke.
Which type were you?
Oh, I was just a regular type dude with a big-ass dick.
And avoids a real answer, looking at the interrogators for a reaction. This is someone who enjoys interacting with people, creating and maintaining a light mood, avoiding serious topics. He's a regular type in a sense because, as we will see, when it comes to views and values, he is the representative of people around him in rural Louisiana who don't like asking existential questions or looking deeper into things and who are bothered by the deconstructions and cynical criticism of the status quo of someone like Rust. A first example of this firm belief in traditional values is where he is judgmental of Rust living alone in a small and almost empty apartment, believing his loneliness to be the source of his strangeness, whereas for Marty, family is a pillar of existence and the crutch for whenever man feels like straying from the right path. This is very significant when we look deeper into Marty's family life and see the discrepancy between his ideals and his reality. Rust's philosophical beliefs are perhaps the most striking aspect of his character because they're deeply ingrained in his experiences. To better understand where they come from, we must learn more about the tragedy in his life.
I was married, Marty, for 3 years. We had a baby girl. She died. Car accident. She was 2 years old. Marriage couldn't handle it.
This highlights Rust's own views on family, why he can't stand to be around Marty's kids, why he turned to alcohol, why he is so cynical about relationships, happiness, the world, existence in general. The moment when he exposes his worldview to Marty is a key scene also because it underlines the unbridgeable differences between them. Let's watch the scene.
Today, that scene, that is the most fucked up thing I ever caught. Ask you something. You're Christian, yeah?
No.
What do you got the cross for in your apartment?
It's a form of meditation.
How's that?
I contemplate the moment in the garden. The idea of allowing your own crucifixion.
We talked before about Rust's death wish. He believes life means suffering, that pain is the only certainty it can offer. Jesus' decision in the Garden of Gethsemane gives self-destruction a higher purpose. This is exactly what Rust is hoping to find. So Marty opens up the conversation about religion. So intrigued that he doesn't even ask for clarification, Marty fixates on Rust's atheism, voicing the religious man's dilemma in front of atheism. How can one live without a belief in something greater than man?
But you're not a Christian, so what do you believe?
I believe that people shouldn't talk about this type of shit at work.
Rust tries to warn him, but Marty insists.
Hold on. 3 months we've been together, I get nothing from you. Today, what we're into now, do me a courtesy, okay? I'm not trying to convert you.
Look, I'd consider myself a realist, all right? But in philosophical terms, I'm what's called a pessimist.
Okay, what's that mean?
Means I'm bad at parties.
Let me tell you, you ain't great outside the parties either.
Joke again, and he is insisting again.
I think human consciousness was a tragic misstep in evolution. We became too self-aware. Nature created an aspect of nature separate from itself. We are creatures that should not exist by natural law.
Well, that sounds god-fucking awful, Rust.
Marty tries to take it as a joke, even though now he's beginning to be a bit troubled, but once set upon the path, Rust is unstoppable, arguing his position to the end, showing how obsessive he can be and that his atheism and nihilism can be almost dogmatic in their certainty.
We are things that labor under the illusion of having a self, this accretion of sensory experience and feeling. Programmed with total assurance that we are each somebody, when in fact everybody's nobody.
I wouldn't go around spouting that shit I was you. People around here don't think that way. I don't think that way.
I think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
So, what's the point of getting out of bed in the morning?
I tell myself I bear witness. The real answer is that it's obviously my programming. And I lack the constitution for suicide.
My luck, I picked today to get to know you.
And now we learn why Marty said earlier that Rust is silent except when you want him to shut up. This is a topic on which Rust has reflected deeply and has formed an immutable opinion. Rust's views here are taken almost ad literam from the book of Thomas Ligotti's The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, where he describes human consciousness as a paradox and a horror. Being self-conscious and being nothing should rule out each other. Instead, they are coupled to suggest an unreal monstrosity, an existential chimera of the order of the undead. The greater community of self-conscious mortals will tell you they are something, not nothing. The suicidal will tell you they are something but wish they were nothing. What almost no one will tell you is that they know they are nothing, living puppets helpless to act except as bidden by powers unseen. Rust's programming that he was talking about. But being self-conscious suffer the illusion that they are something. They believe this is how it is with everyone, that all of us are living the same paradox, the same horror. The suffering of life, the uselessness of human beings, and the superior character of nature and the universe on which man is but a blemish lead to the logical conclusion of anti-natalism. Why make more humans if they are going to have no other purpose than suffering? Norwegian philosopher Peter Zapfer writes the words of the last Messiah as follows. The life of the world is a roaring river, but earth's is a pond and a backwater. The sign of doom is written on your brows. How long will ye kick against the pinpricks? But there is one conquest and one crown, one redemption and one solution. Know yourselves, be infertile, and let the earth be silent after you. Why would Rust, who loved his daughter so much, be an anti-natalist now? And the answer is because he needs to. If life is suffering, death is salvation. His daughter is in a better place of absolute nothingness, and this is mercy. Rust needs this philosophy to cope with her loss and with the guilt that he feels. Rust's philosophy shakes Marty's own views. He doesn't understand them, doesn't know where they're coming from, he finds them disturbing on a visceral level and reacts defensively, almost aggressively, and we see the contrast between his emotional responses and Rust's detachment in the most jarring of situations and resignation while spinning the darkest existential theories. The only emotion Rust shows is when he thinks about his daughter. Roughly 15 minutes into the pilot, and what a bold beginning it is. The fact that it tells us so much makes us wonder, what else is there to know about the protagonist? So this sets up very high stakes for the rest of the series. So what can we learn from all this? Conciseness. If you want your characters to truly shine, make a smaller cast as possible. Here we have two protagonists and they are central to most of the scenes. The rest are support characters like Maggie, Marty's kids, the interrogating policeman, the boss. But this isn't a movie where we spend a lot of time on side characters and we barely have any scenes that are there only to depict the setting and make the world feel alive. But instead this happens naturally and is integrated into the story. Less is more when it comes to words. Note how Rust is a man of few words unless he is interpreting the case or he is exposing his philosophical beliefs. This highlights what is important to him, the focus of his thoughts. If he were usually verbose, his key beliefs would also get lost in all of the prattling. Also, remember how powerful the scene where Ross talks about his daughter is. The pause, the silence show the powerful emotional impact it has on him. He can't put it into words because it's too painful, but we can almost see it flash before his eyes in these moments of silence. Tone. The tone is set up from the very beginning. This is no brainless action movie. This is not one of those crime series where we have one little bad guy in every episode while trying to get to the big fish. It's dark and pensive and it pushes the viewer to reflection. Other series might have replaced the philosophical discussions with either office banter or a convoluted plot with lots of bad guys and red herrings, but the tone of True Detective is very congruent with the horror and eeriness of the murder Rust and Marty have to solve. Focus. This isn't a hero versus villain story. From the multitude of scenes with Rust and Marty just talking, highlighting Rust's outlook on life, his philosophical ideas, and Marty's reticence to them and his traditional views, we see that this is about two very strong protagonists who have to find common ground and work together to catch the villain, finding out something fundamental about themselves in the process. Themes. Some of the main themes like religion, family, good and evil are already laid out, and judging by the scene with Rust's philosophy, we expect them to be tackled in memorable and thought-provoking ways. Foreshadowing. From the differences between the two protagonists, we can expect conflict beyond the crime they have to solve. From the exposition of their beliefs, we expect them to be challenged by the events that follow. From the contrast between Rust's neat but very detached appearance in the past and his unkempt but more expressive self from the present, we are made to wonder what happened in the meantime. And from the last scene of the episode, we are promised to discover if Rust had something to do with the murders, why the policemen believe he did, and how he's going to convince them that he didn't.
You were off the grid for 8 years, right? Show back up here 2010.
My question is,
How could it be him? If we already caught him in 95. How indeed, detectives?
I figured you'd be the one to know.
And start asking the right fucking questions.
I don't think I've ever seen such a rich and promising first episode in terms of characters, style, atmosphere, and mystery. So, this was all for today. Thank you for watching my analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. I have more to say about True Detective and a lot more about other memorable series and films that we have much to learn from. I hope to see you in my next video analysis. Until then, stay inspired.